What is unique about this orchestra? It's none other than the use of Eastern instruments in an otherwise traditional Western orchestra. This is an original composition from a Shen Yun dance performance, reimagined for a full orchestra. What they're doing is actually rarely seen, and can be quite challenging.
And of course, you're the conductor of the orchestra, and it's a very unique sound. Tell me about that.
So you always have live music at our performances. We're very proud of the orchestra that we have created. It's a unique blend of traditional Chinese instruments with classical Western instruments, like the typical strings and woodwinds and brass and percussion. And the result is a wonderful collection of colors that are surprising for a lot of our audience, but at the same time very familiar because of the Western orchestration. But you also hear these traditional Eastern melodies being played by the erhu, for example, and the pipa. So, and all of their pieces are actually original and specifically created for each of the dance that are shown on stage. So this orchestra is one of a kind, and I believe it's probably the first one in the world to permanently incorporate traditional Chinese and Western instruments.
Many of the harmonies from the West and the subtle sounds of the East from the instruments are really quite unique.
Oh, it was truly beautiful. I really enjoyed the mix of East and West, and I just thought that the conductor and the entire symphony just did a beautiful job.
So why does Shen Yun need to use both Eastern and Western instruments? How challenging is it to pull this off? The primary reason is that Western instruments are known for their rich harmonies, with layers of chords and counterpoints that bring depth and fullness to the music. On the other hand, Chinese instruments like the erhu or pipa typically play a single melodic line without harmony, giving them a simpler, more focused sound. In ancient China, music was almost always played by just one or a few instruments. In counterpoint, many ensembles tended to just play in unison. This means a traditional Chinese ensemble might lack the rich texture of a Western orchestra. Another reason for this East-West combination is that Shen Yun has a unique challenge. It has to capture the spirit of classical Chinese dance and history, so it needs that authentic Chinese sound and feel.
What's unique about Shen Yun's music is that it's created at the same time as the dance. So every single note and all the phrasing and the feeling is completely with how the dance goes.
In Shen Yun, the music is based on different culture and describe different things. For example, life in heaven, people who are required for military, heavenly beauties, or monkey king. That's why perhaps it's something new for the audience and it's unique.
By incorporating classical Western instrumentation, Shen Yun music is able to support the authentic Asian melodies with rich harmonies and an intricate web of sound and rhythm. And that comes in especially useful when they need to depict grand historical scenes like imperial processions or heroic battles. After watching the performance, many people say that they're struck by how well the instruments of East and West are blended together.
What is interesting is that the colors of these instruments combining with the pipa and the aruhu and violin, cello, and Western trumpet, it creates a completely different combined sound that I find fascinating. It's a new sound for me. One hears solos from one, solos from the other, but ultimately it's the blend of these sounds that I find interesting. And music basically touches our soul. The expression of the stories is so well told by the music.
To make the Eastern and Western sound blend perfectly is no simple task. Western music often uses a 12-tone chromatic scale, while Chinese music relies on the pentatonic scale, which has just 5 notes. This scale is deeply rooted in Eastern tradition and is especially popular in traditional Chinese folk music, like in Mongolian melodies. Musicians have to play Chinese-style music mostly in the pentatonic scale on Western instruments, which is much more tricky than it looks. Traditional Chinese music also often uses a technique called glissando, where musicians slide between notes instead of playing them distinctly, kind of like hitting a note that's between a black key and a white key on a piano. This can be done briefly or in the form of a slide, and sometimes it's used, as in the following piece, to mimic traditional singing. Musicians trained in the West aren't always familiar with this, so it takes a bit of practice. Luckily, Shen Yun musicians have had plenty of practice mastering these techniques.
It's not so hard as you might think. Yeah, one's Eastern, one's Western, but essentially they're the same thing. They have a bow, they have strings. Adapting to the different styles is more of a challenge. The Western tradition of music, it's kind of a little more square, it's a little more as its own note, rather than one note blending into another note. Western printed music would be. As opposed to what would be more authentic, which would be.
In Shen Yun's music, you'll often hear these subtle slides, especially from the erhu and pipa. They bring a fluid, vocal quality to the music, one that's essential for conveying the emotion and storytelling inherent in Chinese dance.
情熱というか力強さがあってよかったと思います。はい。なかなかその2個のこういったオーケストラと西洋楽器とのその一緒に、融合っていうのはあんまり聞いたことがないので、すごく聞いてて新鮮です。
The erhu instrument, it reminds also of violin, but it is the pentatonics and the tone is a bit different, and it's also very precise. The artist was amazing. She was so professional, and the nuances were very sober, I would say.
These techniques work wonders with conveying stories vividly, which is the heart of a Shen Yun performance. It draws inspiration from 5,000 years of Chinese history, sharing tales from different dynasties all the way to modern times. These stories reflect the diverse cultures and people of China, sometimes even taking the audience to magical places like the heavens or the depths of the ocean. To bring these rich narratives to life, the music needs to create a range of moods and feelings, highlighting different cultural elements and changes in the story.
The Shen Yun Performing Arts Company is, of course, traditional Chinese dance and music, and as a Western instrument player, I get to play Chinese folk music and ethnic music, which is really cool because it's not something that I get to do often because we're usually playing like Western repertoire. I get to really understand a bit more about my culture too through the music. Another element is the story dances, and they have different themes and motifs that portray a certain character or moment. So it's kind of cool playing like the Monkey King. That one has like a certain style to it that portrays his character. And then you have Heavenly Maidens, and that's very elegant, very delicate, very feminine. It's been really awesome getting to experience these different cultural aspects, and also the different elements is actually very, you could say, universal in terms of the different themes that they try to convey, but in a very Asian, kind of Eastern sense.
This fusion of East and West represents more than just a musical achievement. It's a celebration of cultural heritage, history, and artistic innovation. Shen Yun's music goes beyond auditory experience, creating an emotional connection that lingers with audiences long after the performance.
I was very surprised by the orchestra. It is absolutely terrific. A lot of fabulous musicians that have incredible technique. From the violin players, you could hear the trumpet players were incredible, percussion, and the people that performed on stage, just fabulous. It is something that has been totally thought out from the music, from East, West, from the performers, from the ability to be so precise. This doesn't happen by practicing an hour a day. This is a total life commitment. It's so together. It's so together. You know, so many times when you hear a production, you'll hear sections of instruments, but you don't get the blend where somebody's stating a phrase here and it's transferred over here. It's like it's just so well connected. It's fabulous.
Experience the unique blend of Eastern and Western music at Shen Yun's 2025 World Tour, where ancient traditions meet modern orchestration. Tickets are now available at shenyun.com/tickets.